Hi folks, welcome back. In the last video we learned about how to get started with the FastAPI. In this video we will learn how to use get endpoint with query parameters and path parameters. So before diving into the code, let's see what actually path parameter and a query parameter. So if we see parts of a URL, so we have scheme, subdomain, domain, top level domain, port number and path. After that we have a question mark which defines a query string separator, which separates the query strings from the URL path. So if we see, we have after that we have the query string parameter and the fragment. Let's look at the path and query string parameter. So the path defines the resource which the client is requesting for, and the query string filters the resource. If you see this like blog article search, so the client is trying to request for doc id which is equals to 720 and hl equals to en. So let's implement the usage of path and query string parameter in our endpoint. So let's take the use case. We have the list of courses and we want to add a courses endpoint which will list all these courses, and user wants to filter the courses by price. So let's get started with the code. Okay, before that we need to run the server with the uvcon main module and then app, and we also want to reload the changes that we are making to the main.py file. Reload. So yeah, the server is running. Let's click on let's click on the server URL. So we didn't get anything because we didn't have any route. So let's try to access the docs. So now we can see that there are no operations defined in the spec, which is expected because we didn't have any API endpoints, right? So let's get back to VS Code, add a API endpoint, add.get and courses list courses, no parameters, just return the data which we have, that is a DB courses. Let's save this. We can see that it is getting reloaded. Now let's go back to browser, refresh the page. So now we have a API endpoint of type get. Let's try to access that. So we can see that we got the response with the code 200 and the data, the complete data, but there is no way for us to filter the courses between the prices, let's say 100 to 500 or 500 to 1000, something like that. So for that we need to have the query parameters. So let's implement that. Let's go back to Visual Studio Code, and we need two parameters, which is minimum price and maximum price. So Python 3 supports a type checking. We can make use of type because we don't need to validate that type of data that user is sending to the API. So let's add the type. I'm expecting integer, and the default value is none. For this also integer, and default value is none. Let's save this, and now we define this, but we didn't have any logic. Let's go back to browser and refresh the docs. So now we have minimum price and maximum price query parameters. You can see that type of the parameter. So let's try this out. Let's add, I want between 100 to 500. If I do this, I'm receiving all uh, courses that are available, but that is what not I'm expecting. So let's go back to Visual Studio Code and add the actual logic which filters the courses. Courses equals to, let's copy all courses from DB courses because I don't want to modify the DB courses data. Now we have courses. If minimum price is not none, and then I want to filter. Courses equals to filter. This is a Python default function which expects a function and a iterable element. So let's define a lambda function course, which is a dictionary. So it should have a get method. Course dot get price is greater than or equals to minimum price, and it should filter from the courses. So if we also need to have the same condition for maximum price as well to filter on maximum price. Maximum price is not none, and then okay, let's copy this, then change the min price to max price, and this should be less than or equals to. We don't want the courses which are greater than the requested price. So now we are filtering for minimum price and maximum price, and we should return the courses. But filter returns the iterable element, so which will throw an error. So let's try to save that and go back here and execute it. We got 500 error. So we just need to convert that to list. Let's convert it to list. So let's go back again and try to execute the endpoint. Now we got 3 courses of 500, 300 and 100. Let's try for between 500 to or 600 to 1000. We got only one course because we have only one course. If we go to the code and check that, we have only one course which is greater than 500 and less than 1000. Okay, which is working as expected, but we know that FastAPI provides the documentation. We didn't have any description for this. So in order to add that description, let's update the code. So FastAPI provides the function query, which is used for query parameters. Let's remove this and use query. Default value is none. So if you see this definition, let's go here. So here we have a default value and then all other expected keyword arguments, keyword parameters. So we want to update the description. So let's come back here, and this is default value none, and after that we have description, and description is minimum price. Same thing for maximum price. but we just need to update the maximum price. Okay, here we have a typo. Now we have minimum price and maximum price. Let's save that and go back to browser, just refresh the page. So we can see that the description, minimum price and maximum price, and if we try it out with 600 and 1000, we should expect only one object, which is this. Okay, we are good on the query parameters. Now let's say we user wants only one resource out of all courses. Let's say he only want to access this Java or JavaScript with the name. Then we don't want to pass that in the query parameters. So for that we will be using the path parameter. Let's add one more API endpoint, .get courses, and then course name, and the function name is get course, so which is a required parameter, and return course. Now let's add the logic for that. We have the course name and we need to retrieve the requested course based on the name. So let's try to do that. First let's filter the courses. Courses equals to filter lambda course dot get name, which is equals to course name, and we need to filter from DB courses. Okay, now what? We have filtered courses, so we know that like there are only one course with that name. If we see this Python, Go, JavaScript, Java, which is unique. So once let's say if course is found, then length of courses is greater than, okay, we need to apply list try, course is greater than 0, and then course equals to course equals to courses of 0, otherwise course equals to 404 not found. Let's save that and go back to the browser and let's refresh it. So now we can see that the other endpoint courses, we can access the course by course name. Let's try to access the endpoint. Let's pass the path parameter. So here we can see that we have a path parameter which is a course name. Let's try to access for some Python course. Okay, now we got 200 response. This is the response body, Python, interpreted, description, price. Let's say I want to access Java. Again we got 200 and the response back. Let's say we are trying to access for invalid course. So we can see that there is no such course, but still we got 200 response because we didn't send the actual 404 response. And we see that like we didn't have any description for this, but I want to improve the API documentation. So let's improve that. Go back to Visual Studio Code again, and in order to use the documentation for query parameters, we used query, right? In the same way, we will be using a path function. We can import that from the FastAPI as well. Let's copy the path and come here, and we miss the type str equals to path, and then the default value, there is no default value, we just need to, because it's a required parameter. When we define it in path parameters, that is a required one. Description, course name of the course. Let's save this and come back to browser and refresh that. So we can see the description. So this is how we use query parameters and path parameters in the FastAPI.